بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر الخالق البارئ المصور الغفار القهار الوهاب الرزاق الفتاح العليم القابض الباسط الخافض الرافع المعز المذل السميع البصير.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Greetings, I'm Bilal Dannoun and you're watching Voice of Islam. You can also watch us online on www.voiceofislamtv.com.
Mercy is what? Mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal that we see, that we have in our hearts. Mercy of every single bird that feeds its young ones. Mercy of any person who forgives another person. The mother has mercy on her young one because of that 1% of mercy. And every single creature, al-wahsh, even the beasts and the birds of the sky, each one has mercy on one another through this 1% of mercy. All of this mercy of every human being and jinn and creature on the whole of the earth, every single mercy you put together, that is only 1% of Allah's mercy that He has revealed to the earth. Allah has divided it into 100 pieces. And the 99 He kept for Himself for the Day of Judgment, and 1% He sent to this earth. Most of it has been kept for us for the Day of Judgment.
Now, today we're going to be talking about the concept of the hijab. We're going to be talking about something that we're all wearing today, which is the headscarf, and the other ways in which we dress to cover ourselves. And we're going to look at it in a slightly different way from what we sometimes do. We're not just going to look at it as something that we do as an act of worship. It's not just something that we do privately for ourselves. We're going to look at how it can actually help us in society. We're going to look at those ways in which it can make our lives easier in a lot of ways when it comes to, for example, when we leave school and when we want to get jobs or when we want to get married. How can the hijab actually help us? Because sometimes we think that it's something that might stop us or hold us back in society. So this is what we're going to look at today. Now I want you to think about something before we start. Everything in existence has a particular purpose or effect. Everything has a particular use. So for example, a needle, a sewing needle, it has a particular use when we use it for stitching. Is that right? Right. But if it catches you by mistake, it has a different effect, doesn't it? It hurts. It hurts. And so everything in existence has a particular use. And when it's used in the proper way, it can be useful and it can be very good. But when it's misused or when it's exploited or when it's used in the wrong way, it can have a harmful effect. And it's the same thing for beauty and appearance. Beauty can have a very wonderful effect when it's used in the right way and when it's controlled in the right way. But if it's exploited or it's used in the wrong way, the appearance of people and beauty and attraction, these things can have a harmful effect in society. Now, before I talk about what Islam says about the hijab, which many of you may already know, I want to look about how in the West, sometimes, or in other societies or in non-Muslim societies and even in Muslim countries today, but how women can be made to feel about how they look. So the ways in which women are forced to feel about their look and their appearance. Now, as an example, there's an American TV show which some of you may have heard of, and it's called America's Next Top Model. And it's been going for a number of years now. I don't know if it's happening this year. I stopped following it a long time ago. But I noticed that every week in that program, for anybody who's seen it, what they do is they get young girls and they make them want to be supermodels. They make them want to be supermodels and to be in the modeling industry, and they make them compete against each other. So they're all in a competition and they're all trying to become the best model possible. And they're all each trying to get a contract, a modeling contract, so that they can work in that industry. And every week on that program, you see those girls in tears and they're crying. And they're crying because they're made to feel like they don't look good enough. They're not good enough to be supermodels. They're competing against each other. They're told that they're not as pretty as the other girls. They're told that they have to do certain things to sell products, things that they don't feel comfortable doing, but things that they then feel that they have to do in order to be successful. And it's not just in reality TV, it's not just in TV that these things happen, but we see these things happen around us, and we sometimes experience this kind of pressure amongst us in our own society or in our own communities today. For example, everybody's told, you know, that to be an individual or to be unique or to stand out, you have to wear the latest fashion. We're told that you have to wear the latest colors, the latest styles, the latest type of jeans. And that's in order to stand out and be different. That's what we're told sometimes. And so in the markets, we find hundreds and thousands of the same kind of item. The same kind of item. Everyone has to wear skinny jeans, or everyone has to wear bootleg jeans, or everyone has to wear black leggings. Now, if everybody's being made to wear the same thing, how is that special? How is that unique? How is that making us stand out or be different? Instead, it's pressuring everybody to conform to a certain way of how women should look. It's asking everybody to say, here's a model of what you should look like, and this is what you have to do, and this is what you have to make yourself look like. And it's not just these funny TV programs, it's not just one or two magazines here or there, but actually studies found, so there's some experts in the field, some scientists did some studies in this area, and they found that just 3 minutes of looking at these magazines and things like this made young women like ourselves feel depressed, guilty and shameful. Just 3 minutes looking at magazines with these kinds of pictures and these kinds of images. It made them feel depressed about how they look, and it made them want to improve their appearance and obsess over their appearance. It made them think that their appearance was the most important thing. Now that was just 3 minutes. But we know that in real life, it's not just 3 minutes that we face, it's constant. TV adverts, music videos that you see in passing, movies, everywhere, we have this around us. And someone else did an experiment as well. There was another group of experts. They did an experiment, and they looked at Fiji, an island not far from here. They looked at Fiji, and they looked at what people used to think about how women should look, what people used to think about women's appearance before they had these kinds of programs and this kind of TV in their country. They looked at people and they found that in Fiji, most people had the idea that larger bodies were considered to be more beautiful. So they had a different idea about beauty. Big was beautiful. But after they introduced some of these TV programs and some more of Western TV programs into Fiji, they found that 75% of girls, so a huge number of girls, suddenly reported that they felt too fat. And more than 60% suddenly reported that they had started dieting. And a large number reported things like eating disorders, because they suddenly became obsessed with the way that they looked. And there are a number of studies that have been done that show that media and these kinds of things increase the fear of not being accepted amongst young women. It increases their obsession with looks instead of any other quality amongst young women. So intellect, the way you think, your character, your education, all of these things became less and less important to women. Instead, they became more and more concerned only with the way that they looked. Now, another experiment was done, and this one's really cute and really interesting. And what they did was they wanted to see how people react, or how creatures, animals react, when they're given something to look at that is way more exaggerating than what it would normally look like. So if you had something which was pink, they would make it bright pink to try to see how people would react to this. And so what they did was they got a nest, and they found a nest that had lots of baby chicks in it. And the chicks in that nest, they were all a medium kind of blue color. They were blue, and they had little yellow beaks. They're very cute little chicks in this nest together, newborn. And what they did was that they went to this nest and they put in another chick. This one was fake, it wasn't real. And this chick was brighter than all the others, and it had a bigger and more brighter orange beak than all of the others, and it was a little bit bigger than all of the others as well. In other words, it stood out. It wasn't real, it was fake, it was artificial, but it stood out from all the other ones. And they watched to see what would happen when the mother bird came back. Because when the mother bird comes back, usually she comes to bring food for the little chicks to feed them. And this time when the mother bird came back, rather than feeding her chicks, she went straight to the big one because it caught her eye. It caught her eye, it was so bright and bold, she couldn't miss it. She went straight to that one and she started to feed that fake chick, and she didn't give anything to the other chicks. She completely ignored them. And sometimes when young women are asked to wear the hijab or are asked to cover, sometimes we fear that we will be ignored. Sometimes we fear that we will be ignored, and those who don't cover or those who do things to enhance or to focus on the way that they look, we fear that they will get all of the attention in society. Whether it's as they grow up in terms of when they want to get married, will they even be noticed? Who will look at them? These are some of the kinds of concerns and some of the kinds of worries that young women develop as they grow older when they see this kind of thing happening. But let's come back to Islam before we answer or provide a solution for that. Let's look at what Islam says. Now, Islam says that men and women, by and large, are the same. Men and women are generally the same in Islam. And so it gives them the same kind of rulings, the same kind of instructions, and the same kind of guidance as to how they should live. For example, God says in the Qur'an, "I will deny no man or woman among you the reward of their labor." In other words, if a man does something good and a woman does something good, they will both be rewarded. There's no difference between men and women in Islam in this regard. But Islam also recognizes that men and women are slightly different. And this has an influence on why women have to cover a certain amount and men have to cover to a different or lesser amount. Some of you may have noticed this. Now, in the animal species, every creature has a pair. And in that pair, they have different roles. They have differences between them. The male and the female have differences between them. And it's the same for humans. So men have certain hormones that women don't have, certain hormones that increase them to be more competitive, be more confident, and take more risks in society. And it makes them generally more suited to the more hazardous and risky situations in society. And women, physically, are more equipped for reproduction and motherhood. This is something that everybody can see from nature. You don't need to be a rocket scientist or a genius to figure out that men and women, biologically are a little bit different. And Islam recognizes that whilst men can have more physical power, it recognizes that women have more aesthetic power or more power with their beauty. A woman's power is more beautiful than a man's beauty. And so the Qur'an tries to create a situation with the hijab in such a way that the risks between them and the strengths that they have can be balanced. And so it says in the Qur'an, men and women are protectors of one another. It says that they're protectors of one another. It doesn't say that men are there to oppress women with the hijab, or that women are there to oppress men with their appearance and things like this. It's saying that they're there to complement each other. Islam does, however, discuss, as we know, the image of a woman. It does tell us how we should dress as women. And for the hijab, we find the verse in the Qur'an which says Say to the believing women that they should lower their gaze and guard their modesty, and that they should not display their beauty except what must ordinarily appear thereof. So it's asking them to cover their bodies and to cover their beauty. And it says they should draw their veils over their chests and not display their beauty except to their husbands, and etc., and other people in front of whom you know that we don't have to wear the hijab. For example, at home, you don't wear it if you're with your father or your brothers or this kind of thing. And it goes on and gives other verses about this as well. And men have a hijab as well. So men's hijab is that they cannot wear skin-tight or fitted clothes, and they have to be covered from at least the navel, so like the middle of the body, up until the knee. And so both men and women in Islam have hijab. It's not just all on women to look after. It's something that is there for both men and women. And what the hijab does, you know how I was talking earlier about some of the pressures that are created through these magazines and through these billboards and through these programs on young women to obsess and focus on how they look? What Islam does is that it asks people to judge a woman not on how she looks, but on other things, on her character, on whether she does good things or bad things, whether she treats people well or not, how she manages certain situations. It judges her on her, it asks society not to look at her appearance and judge her for how she looks, what size she is, what kinds of clothes she wears, but rather on her character. And on a practical note, the hijab for many of us saves a huge amount of time every day. Putting on the hijab in the morning takes about 2 minutes, whereas some women that I used to know used to spend hours getting their hair done in the morning every single day before going out to work. Now, in some countries or in some other parts of the world, studies found that 6 out of 10 girls were afraid to leave their homes because they were afraid of how they looked. They felt that they didn't look good enough to leave their homes. They wouldn't give their opinion in class. They wouldn't go to the doctors. They would sometimes skip going to school. Islam, on the other hand, says you can cover. You are not to be judged on your appearance. Your appearance should not be what either controls you in society or holds you back. Rather, it should be something that makes you feel more free in society so that you can pursue these things. Now, I mentioned earlier that sometimes young women feel that they will be invisible compared to women that don't cover. And sometimes many young women, they understand the reason for covering. They understand what Islam says. They know what Islam says about the hijab. They know what Islam says about lowering the gaze and all of this. But this isn't why some young girls, sometimes they don't want to cover. Sometimes they wake up in the morning and they're like, I don't want to wear this. I want to do my hair, I want to have it out, I want to look nice, I want to look pretty. Sometimes this is a very normal human thing that so many young girls feel. And one of the reasons, as I mentioned earlier, was that they're worried that they'll feel invisible compared to other women. They're worried that they'll be ignored. Now, this is something which shouldn't be a factor when it comes to whether we decide to cover or not. Would you really, for example, if you were worried that you wouldn't find someone to marry when you're older, if you were worried about wearing the hijab because of that, would you really want to be with someone who didn't respect the hijab? Would you really want to be with someone that only valued you based on your looks? Or rather, would you rather them have a little test? And the test be that they have to judge you first on your character. And you can judge them on their character as well at the same time. If we think that we can just, display our beauty for the purposes of attracting different things and getting more opportunities in life, we'll find that this is not actually a good strategy because beauty, it has an expiration date. Over time, beauty fades. Do you really want to have someone that's with you only because of the way you look? No, because after time, when looks fade, what will there be? Not much left. So you want to be with someone that values you for who you are, not for the way you look. This is not to say that appearance is not important. Islam says that you should adorn yourself in those circumstances in which it is allowed. In your home, you can be as fun and as dressing up as you like, There are circumstances in which you can do this. It's just saying that when you go out and when you're amongst other people, it's saying not to do this because it has certain effects in society. One, It makes people, or you know, like the mother chick, the mother bird, it makes them ignore what's real. It makes them ignore the real beauty, because it's always focused on something which is exaggerated. It's always focused, for example, on maybe those women who are, and men who are more uncovered and who are, you know, more obvious to see, and all the others get ignored. Do you see how that works? It's like it makes you feel like you're not really there. And the other thing is with regards to jobs. So some young women feel, if I wear the hijab, I won't be able to become a doctor. I won't be able to become a lawyer. I won't be able to get a good job, because if I go into the interview, all they'll see is my hijab. They won't actually think about what I know. They won't actually care about what I know. But this isn't actually true. Now, I'll give you an example. A while ago, I was going to go for an interview for a particular job. And somebody said to me, look, you're not going to get the job because you wear a headscarf. And they said to me that for that one day when I go to the interview, they said that I should take off my hijab. They said, just take it off for one day, it'll be fine, just take it off. You go in, you get the job, you know, you come out, and then when you go to work, you can just wear it. And I was like, wow, that's some really interesting advice right there. Now, I went to the interview and I wore my hijab. I didn't tell those people who advised me, who told me not to wear it. I didn't tell them what I was doing. I went to the interview and I wore my hijab. And I thought to myself, going into the interview, God is the one who provides. God provides us with sustenance. He provides us with work. He provides us with food and money, whenever he does, so that we can worship him. Anything that God gives us, it's so that we can use it to worship him. If we get a job, or if we want a job, it's so that we can use it to serve our Creator. Now, if I go to a job interview and I think that I'm going to stop worshiping God for today so that I can get this job, is God really going to favor or give me something good on that day? No, because if I've compromised, if I've said I'm going to forget about God for today just so I can get this job, then I haven't put my trust in God. I've put my trust in the person who's going to give the job. And that's not a good way of living, because then what you're saying is that God doesn't have overall right or overall power. You're saying that someone else has the power. Anyway, I went to the interview with my hijab and I got the job, alhamdulillah. And then I went and told those people who had told me, you know, just take off the hijab for that one day, you don't need to wear it. And I went and told them, and I said, oh, I got the job. And they said, see, we told you, you just took it off and you got the job. And I told them I didn't take it off. And they were surprised. They were kind of shocked. And I explained why, as I've just explained to you here today. And then they understood. They understood why we can't compromise on what God has asked us to do in order to get something in life. Because it's only God that has a final decision as to whether we get anywhere in life. And so the hijab should never be seen as an obstacle. One more way in which it is an advantage. Now, say you do think that, okay, if I want to be a doctor or a lawyer, I want to be X, Y, or Z, or whatever profession it is, and you think that the hijab will somehow hold you back. And you might think that in order to be good, I'll have to be even better than everyone else because I wear the hijab, and you know, the hijab is going to be an obstacle. They're going to look at it, and unless I'm really good, they're not going to be interested. Use that to your advantage. If that's the case, then do become better than everybody else at what it is you want to do. This is what we should be doing anyway. We should be striving for excellence in everything that we do. So whatever it is that you want to do, don't worry about the hijab. Don't worry about that, because God is the one to provide you with everything that you need in life as long as you follow his law. Don't worry about that. All you should focus on is being the best that you can be in whatever field that you want to be in, whether it's being a housewife, whether you want to be a mother, a wife, raise a family when you're older, whether you want to be a doctor, a scientist, a writer, a journalist, whatever it is you want to do, don't worry about the hijab. Do what you have to do to be the best that you can be at it, and be so good at it that you can't be ignored, that whoever you go to for a job will say, do you know what, this girl's outstanding. I can't not give her the job. I can't not take her into this university. I can't not have her on my course. She's just too good. And that's how we can use the hijab, not as a barrier or as a hurdle in society, but we should use it to spur us on and to motivate us to be the absolute best that we can be.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, a quick message from the team at Voice of Islam. Every time our show airs, we reach a potential audience in the hundreds of thousands. We bring the truth about Islam to non-Muslims and help Muslims learn more about their own faith. Every time something positive comes from Voice of Islam being on air, those people who have contributed and made the broadcast possible share in the potential rewards, inshallah. We really appreciate people donating what they can. Every little bit helps us meet the cost of broadcasting each week. We sincerely thank everyone who has helped us and continues to do so, and we look forward to more help in the future, inshallah. If you are keen to contribute, please visit our website for details of how to do so.
I always knew that this was going to be a step that I would take. At first I was a little hesitant because I knew things were going to change, but then I decided it was the right decision to make. So on the 1st of January 2004, my journey began and I finally decided to put on the hijab. Every girl who puts on the hijab is faced with some sort of obstacle. For some, it's their families not wanting them to wear it. Others have self-esteem issues with it. Others face doubts about it. The challenge I faced was one that many others have also faced. Starting and going to a high school with hardly any Muslims and where you're the first Muslim people have met was no easy task. As teenagers, fitting in is the most fundamental thing in high school. Having no friends in high school is something every teenager tries to avoid. So I tried to be like them. Whatever the latest trend was, I went along with it. Not just that, but I needed to keep up with the latest beauty standards. Looking in the mirror for me was an exercise to try and pinpoint all the things wrong with me and that I needed to change. My self-esteem became dependent on the makeup I wore. On top of this, there was no way I could hide the fact that I was not like the other kids at school. I was embarrassed and I would often ask myself why I needed to be so different. So I went about my high school life struggling with my identity, trying to answer the question of who I was really. The truth is, I felt extremely lonely. Looking back, the reasoning why I was so embarrassed of who I was because I had yet not fully understood the hijab. I thought the hijab was purely about modesty. I thought the hijab was there just to protect women from the gaze of men. But unfortunately, that was a very shallow and two-dimensional understanding of the hijab. It was not until I got to uni and started to take learning about my religion seriously that something happened. I fell in love. I fell in love with the hijab because I came to understand that it was not simply a piece of fabric draped over my body to conceal beauty and preserve modesty. It was a physical manifestation of my submission and connection with my Lord, an external representation of my inward spirituality. When I learnt the rationale for the hijab presented in the Qur'an, I was blown away. Not only did it shatter my shallow understanding of the hijab, it proved to me God had validated my beauty. Therefore, I need to make the most of the opportunities and blessings I've been gifted with. Knowing this has actually pushed me to constantly improve myself and ensure my actions and character are in line with the teachings of Islam. But we need to understand that by wearing the hijab, I'm not declaring I am Islam. Rather, I am a Muslim, meaning I am someone who is trying to follow this religion, who accepts it as the truth, sees beauty in it, and hopes to beautify myself with it. Ultimately, no one is perfect. As humans, we're susceptible to making mistakes. The hijab doesn't make you a more perfect or righteous human being. Rather, it's a constant reminder to keep striving and excel in your personal and spiritual development. Remember, no matter how dark the world gets, be like that star that stands out and shines the way for others to see.
Every second while you are watching this film, some 100 billion processes take place in your eye. 8 million cells in your body die. 8 million new cells are created to replace them. Every cell constituted an average of 2,000 proteins. More than 2.5 million red blood cells are manufactured in your body. Your heart pumped 83 cubic centimeters of blood. 5,000 nerve cells are produced in a fetus in its mother's wombs. Light coming from the moon reached your eye. Every photon from the sun traveled 300,000 kilometers. 16 million tons of water rained down on the earth. 100 bolts of lightning strike the earth. 4 babies are born. How many of these phenomena that take place inside and around you every second are you aware of? In addition, do you realize that each and every one of these phenomena is an independent miracle? Caught up in the rush of life on a daily basis, the great majority of people are unaware of the perfection of the systems that exist within their bodies, but also around them. People are unaware that their lives depend on thousands of different events, all taking place with a specific sequence and amazing order. The fact is that survival of people and all the living or inanimate entities in the universe depend on a magnificent and flawless system that functions in a ceaseless manner. Each one of the countless links in this magnificent system works in perfect harmony and interdependence with all the others. The absence of a single link or a problem with the way it functions might lead to inconceivable disruptions. A continual disruption could even lead to the complete disappearance of life on Earth. Our world survives due to the constant maintenance of many highly delicate balances, both known and unknown. These balances include the rate of expansion and mass of the universe, and temperatures, densities, and the speeds of rotation of the galaxies and the stars and planets in them. The sun rises every morning and sets every evening. The 4 seasons follow one another with complete regularity every year. Tons of water rises up into the air before falling back in the form of rain. While human beings are totally unaware, Allah maintains the countless balances on earth at every moment. Every day, Allah causes billions of seeds to sprout from the soil, creates fruits and vegetables from them, while at the same time nourishing billions of living things all over the world, and maintaining all the systems that permit us to survive within a specific order. He controls the earth and sky, and protects all the living things on earth against known and unknown perils. Allah reveals in one verse how there is much to be learned for all thinking people in every one of these things. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the creation of the heavens and earth and the alternation of the night and day, and the ships which sail the seas to people's benefit, and the water which Allah sends down from the sky, by which He brings the earth to life when it was dead and scatters about in it creatures of every kind, and the varying directions of the winds and the clouds subservient between heaven and earth. There are signs for people who use their intellect. The miracles taking place around us every second. The sun is the main source of energy of life on Earth. However, human beings and animals are unable to make direct use of solar energy. Since their bodies lack the systems to use that energy in its original state. However, at this stage, plants enter the equation together with another miraculous system. Plants turn solar energy into chemical energy by establishing an unbelievable energy conversion center in their own bodies. All the raw energy sources used by our cells are actually solar energy bestowed on us by means of plants. When we drink anything, for example, we are actually swallowing solar energy. The strength in our muscles is, in fact, nothing more than a different form of solar energy. Plants store solar energy in their bodies by carrying out highly complex chemical processes. Using carbon dioxide, a toxic gas, they create the food that provides the energy needed by human beings. The formula for these very special processes lies in their structures. In their entirety, these processes are referred to as photosynthesis. In order for photosynthesis to continue, a separate enzyme needs to discharge its own function at every stage of the phenomenon. Many highly specialized enzymes come together inside the cell. They permit the phenomena of solar energy being stored in nutrients to be carried out in full. The only reason why the plant cells carries out this task is to convert solar energy into a state that can be used by living cells. As a result of thousands of chemical processes, not all of which are as yet fully understood, solar energy sets out on a journey that begins in the plant and ends in living cells. Solar energy assumes many different forms during the course of this journey, at the end of which it becomes the source of a vitality that functions in a person's muscles, heart, kidneys, and even eyes. This chemical reaction, which takes place in the grass we walk on and the trees we pass beneath, is one of the basic conditions for life. And it has never been possible to reproduce it in any laboratory. Through this flawless order, the complexity of which exceeds all human intelligence and strength, Allah reveals His infinite compassion. Everything necessary for human comfort, well-being, health, and most important of all, life, is flawlessly planned, considered, and calculated. By reason of our Lord's blessing, this system continues uninterrupted at all times. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. A sign for them is the dead land which we bring to life, and from which we bring forth grain of which they eat. We place in it gardens of dates and grapes, and cause springs to gush out in it, so they may eat its fruits. They did not do it themselves, so will they not be thankful? Giving thanks for our blessings at every moment and every second. Throughout the course of this film, we have witnessed the miracles taking place inside our bodies and all around us at every moment and every second. Reflecting on just one of any of these is enough for one to see Allah's infinite care, affection, and compassion for human beings. All the systems in the skies and on the earth and everywhere between operate non-stop and flawlessly in order to serve human beings. And at every moment and every second, there is a miraculous harmony and order in both the human body and every corner of the universe. Allah has opened the doors of His mercy to us to their fullest extent, and has adorned them with the finest blessings. The duty of anyone who comprehends these miracles going on around them at every moment is to give constant thanks to Allah for these blessings and this beauty. Because, as we are informed in the Qur'an on the Day of Judgment, everyone will be called to account regarding the blessings that had been placed at their disposal. For people who are capable of using their consciences and grasping the order existing in the universe, that universe is filled with reasons that will further increase their love and fear of Allah. For that reason, people must turn to Allah at all moments, give thanks to our Lord to whom all things belong, and bind themselves to Him with the most powerful love. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. He has given you everything you have asked Him for. If you tried to number Allah's blessing, you could never count them. Man is indeed wrongdoing, ungrateful.
The topic is actually something I've been thinking about for the last couple of months. And I feel that in the Ummah, there are lots of different kinds of confusion. And we see the world around us and we think about the realities around us, whether they are political realities or social realities or economic realities, or they are realities in regards to our own life, and we have to figure out what it all means. We have to make sense of things like the news, or we have to make sense of our own challenges in our lives. But I feel more and more that we actually don't look at reality around us through the Book of Allah. In other words, the best way to understand reality is to understand certain concepts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once you understand those concepts, your view and your perspective and your opinion changes. Now I want to give you an example before I begin the specific conversation. And that is that, imagine that you are wearing glasses, or you have really weak eyesight. You have really weak eyesight. And you're not wearing your glasses. Okay? So you can see, but you can't see accurately. Right? There's something missing in what you can see. You may see that there's a sign, but you may not be able to read it exactly. You understand what I'm saying? But once you put the right lenses on, you put the right glasses on, then now you can see things clearly. I want you to think of the Qur'an, and especially the Book of Allah, the Qur'an, as a kind of glasses. Once you put them on, once you start thinking through the Qur'an, reality becomes clear. Like you start seeing things in a different light, that you did not see them in the same way before. Okay? I'll give you a small example of that before I actually talk about the ayat that I really want to talk to you about. And this is actually, in my opinion, it is probably going to take me about 6 months to a year, if not more, to study this one surah before I can comprehensively talk about the surah. But right now I'll just share with you some brief concepts. But before I do, just an example. If I was going with a bunch of young men and women on a bus, and we drove by a beautiful mansion, it's just a gorgeous house, on top of a hill. On the other side there's the ocean. Just an absolutely beautiful, stunning house. And the driveway into the house, there's a gorgeous car parked outside. And on the back of the house there's this incredible backyard and a swimming pool and all of it. I mean, whatever you can imagine is there. It's like it's a piece of Jannah on earth. And you see the guy walking into his house. We're driving on this bus and we see this guy walking into his house. And I asked these young men and women, do you think that guy's successful? Do you think he's successful? Overwhelmingly, what is going to be the response? Yeah, that's pretty successful. And the guy, look at him. Look at what he's accomplished in life. That's a pretty successful person. Okay. When you take a picture of someone graduating from college, they're shaking hands with the president of the university, they're being handed their diploma, and somebody asks you, you think that's successful? What are people going to say? You know, it's going to be Muslims and non-Muslims. Everybody's going to say that that is a kind of what? Success. I'm going to congratulate my children one day when they graduate from college too, because that's a kind of success. When somebody gets a job, is that a kind of success? Sure. We congratulate people when they get a job. When somebody buys a house, when somebody starts a business, when somebody gets a new car, when somebody gets married, when people accomplish things in life, then we celebrate them, because these are different kinds of small and big successes. Isn't that true? So the bus keeps driving, and we see a homeless man, who's living in a cardboard box on the street. And he looks like he's wearing clothes from a couple of years. And you don't want to go close to him because of the smell. And I ask my students, do you think that guy's successful? What do they say? They say he's not successful. Now imagine if I was riding in this bus, but in this bus there were not Muslim boys and girls, but they were Christian boys and girls, or Jewish boys and girls, or atheist boys and girls, or agnost boys and girls, or Buddhist boys and girls. And I asked them the same exact question. Do you think their answers would be the same? Yep, their answers would be the same. That's the problem. The problem is the way we think about success and the way we think about failure. For Muslims, it's supposed to be different. All human beings can see it a certain way, that's fine. They have the apparent view of success and failure. But us, Muslims, Allah has given us clearer glasses. And once you look at reality through these glasses, you see something other people cannot see. You see something other people cannot see. So when you put those glasses on, then you start thinking about the Book of Allah, and you realize that one of the most beautiful, captivating, magnificent homes that was ever built was the castle of Fir'aun. It was one of the most amazing homes ever built. And if our bus was driving by the castle of Fir'aun and he was walking into his house, and I asked my Muslim children, is that successful? Is that guy successful? What would their answer be? Fir'aun is not successful. He's one of the worst losers in all of human history. Isn't that the case? What was the second kind of person we ran into? There was one guy walking into a mansion. What was the other guy? He was a homeless guy. Okay. Ibrahim alayhi salam was kicked out of his house. He was told to leave the house. So he's homeless. Well, was he successful? He was. Actually, he's one of the most successful human beings that ever lived. Now the Qur'an is teaching me that a homeless man is successful, and an incredibly wealthy man is what? A failure. You know what the Qur'an is teaching me? The Qur'an is teaching me that success has nothing to do with wealth. And failure has nothing to do with poverty. Success and failure are different concepts for us than they are for everybody else. Some of you want your children to get a good education. I want you to think about this. The parents here, you want your children to get a good education. Why do you want your children to get a good education? Because you want them to be successful. Isn't that the case? You want them to get a job. You want them to get a good career. You want them to have a good life. You don't want them to rent an apartment. You want them to buy a house. You want them to go into a good paying profession. You want them to become a lawyer or a doctor. You want them to become an engineer. You know, this is what you want for your kids. You want them to have a good life. Now tell me, sometimes we send our children to school and we send them to a different country, or we send them to a different state or a different city. And even before our children left our home to go to these schools, you already notice that they are starting to disobey you. They're becoming disobedient to you. They're becoming less and less and less mindful of their prayer. And you're thinking in the back of your head, maybe if they go to college in a different city, that things are going to get worse. They're going to become even more rebellious, even more independent, even more careless. But then you think to yourself, but if they don't go to college in a different city, they're not going to succeed. They're not going to succeed. So you know what most parents do? What decision they make? Let them go. Let them go. Then 4 years go by, and then I get the email. I get the email, my child doesn't talk to me. My child wants nothing to do with me. My child has run off and married a non-Muslim. My child tells me that he doesn't believe in Islam anymore, or whatever. That didn't happen overnight. That process began a long time ago. But you know what? Even the concerned Muslim parent, maybe they didn't think about success and failure for themselves and for their child clearly enough to make the right kinds of decisions. Because in their head, so long as they graduate from college, they must be what? Successful. The price was too high. The price was not just the tuition. Now, that's not the only, you didn't just pay tuition. You paid the price of guidance in some cases. That's a too high a price to pay. There's a lot of serious things for us to think about as families when we make our decisions. So this was just an example to give you, just about the concept of success and failure, how the way we look at it from the lens of Iman, from the lens of the Qur'an, then our view changes. We can't think of it the same way as everybody else anymore.
Like to watch Voice of Islam TV anytime you want? You can on our internet website, www.voiceofislamtv.com. voiceofislamtv.com.
الخافض